board on Saturday, March 20th, 2021, for the purpose of talking about the plan to reopen the schools.
Yes.
We have Ed Donovan, Dennis Bosick, Deb Rubenstraw, Dante Cummins, Eric Steadley, and Monica Garcia present at the time the meeting's beginning. All right, Dr. Iverson.
Yes. Hey, well, good morning again, everyone. Happy Saturday. I got up early, went and ran and got me a latte, and I'm ready to go. That my staff will tell you that if they want to do anything for me, they bring me a Dunkin' Donuts card and say, go get a latte. They always tell me, go get a latte. You need one. Do that.
Make it a double.
But I didn't get one for this meeting. I just want you to say I got up early and got dressed and got it. I'm ready to go. I'm hoping I can share with you and go over the changes we made to the hybrid plan. You did get an opportunity to see it. I will address your questions. Eric, I did get your email. I'm hoping I can address some of those issues, if not while I'm presenting it at the end, because we have given some thought to some of that. So what I will do is go out and present now. So let me pull it up. This is the document that was sent home to you, just so we can look at it collectively. So, all righty. So you notice we changed the title. I mean, we wanted to be inclusive of everything. So this is our hybrid plan of synchronous, and I will explain. There are some asynchronous times in the schedule. Not as many, but you will see. We have conflicting times where if there's in-person instruction going on in the building, that teacher is not available then to do it for those at home. And then those activities have to be asynchronous, and I'll explain to you why. And so this plan is for students who are in person during that week they're assigned. Students at home either week, A or B, who are going to remain at home, and families who change. So kids who are in school 1 week and home B week, we still are making it possible for those students while home on B week. They're participating in A-B rotation, but also while home B week, they are getting synchronous learning. And then there's a third group, the students who aren't coming A or B week. Their parents have elected to remain and keep them home. And right now, I will talk about a survey we're putting together that will go out next week. So you'll see the text messages. I did get some numbers, not many. The parent who spoke with us at the board meeting, but our social worker, as she's continued to work with families, she sent me a list of about 5 names of parents who said they are not sending their child back. So this plan for that family will work for them too. But we will need to get a handle on the numbers, and that's what the survey will tell us when we send it out next week. So what we did, like I normally did when we presented this in October, we like to show you what the students are doing and what the teacher is doing during a block of time. I will caution and let you know that the remote learning side, well, I'll get to it. So our day still starts from 8 to 8:40. Teachers report to work at 8. Students aren't always in. When we're in person, our students aren't there at 8. So they get in there in time for breakfast. So from 8 to 8:40 for our remote students who are home, that still was in our remote plan. They should be doing these things. I mean, that is their choice. Showering, getting ready to access learning. Our teachers are in building at this point, and we normally engage with them in meetings. We still have our ILT grade level meetings. So we were doing all of this remotely. This is now going to happen in person, just like we've done before pre-COVID. We're looking at data. There's sometimes small vignettes of professional development. This is an excellent time where we hold our SAP meetings, our AST meetings. Those are those academic support team meetings. And so we're going to kick that back in gear, just like we did before. And again, we did these things remotely, but now they're going to be in person. So these people aren't available for anything, but they're not available for any remote learning at that time. That's why the students they're not officially on schedule right there. So 8:40 to 9 o'clock for students, they has not started for them. They should be now just finishing up any work. They have that time. They had that time in our remote schedule to finish and get prepared for the day. at the time, while they're doing that, their teachers are in the building going to pick up the students who are coming in on the bus. The students by now between 8:40 and 9 have eaten breakfast. Breakfast ends about 8:40. So they're picking them up, taking them down the halls to the classroom, taking attendance. So they're not available from 8:40 to 9 because they have a group of kids in front of them. So that's why the kids at home are doing some asynchronous work that period of time. We don't have a co-teacher right now who could be checking in with them and did you get your homework done? Did you have any questions? So we're going to be really leaning on our parents at home with them to continue to do that piece. Okay, because sometimes with our remote schedule, teachers weren't picking up kids. We were all remote. They use some of this time for conferencing, for checking in with children, emailing, all the things we talked about. That's just a part that's no longer in this schedule. And we're still looking to see how we can manipulate it. But right now, I want to be clearly transparent. That's not happening because all of our teachers in the buildings have duties. Some are on CAF duty. If it's a teacher without a class, they are not in their classrooms during this time. They're on watching the buses in the cafeteria. There are things happening when we're in person that we don't have the same capacity to do with those at home. So this is a typical day, but right now, our literacy block right now starts at 9. So that's what happens, English language arts. So teachers at this time are starting live instruction. They're in the building. Those half of that population of kids who are coming in are in front of this teacher while she is beginning real-time live English language arts instruction aligned with lesson plans, standards, and so forth. Our students at home, they're doing the very same thing. So they're going to log on because the kids in front of the teacher not using Google Meets right now. Our kids are home and they know how to do this well. They're logging on and they're getting that very same real-time live instruction. Now their little faces will be, across the laptop of that teacher on her desk, while she's in the class with the little babies who are in the room, she will position this laptop so that those on the screen can see her. If she's up front, just turn the laptop around. And we're going to do some PD with them to show them this because they've never done this. But turn the laptop around so all of the kids, while she's teaching whole group instruction, the kids online can look at her, and the kids in the classroom, of course, can look at her. The kids online will not see their classmates, though. They won't be able to see them. They will be able to hear discussion and questions, and they too can chime in and raise questions. But that's how the teacher can kind of be looking both groups at the same time. Okay, but what I want to caution here is that this is a model of a day, but when we're in the building, when we were remote, we could have, we had all teachers plan at the same time. We had everyone eat at the same time, and it was easy to build these blocks like this on a remote schedule. So where you see where I have time where it says the Google Meet on the student side, students at home will connect to Google Meet for real live time synchronous instruction at the time based on the master schedule to engage in this live learning. So when we're in the building, every teacher has a different time they do specials. Specials start 9 o'clock and run all during the day. And the special area teachers all have a schedule where they get to all those teachers every day. So while we're in the building, that kicks back in gear. So the live instruction for literacy will happen for both groups, but it may not be at 9 o'clock because the second grade class maybe could have special at 9. So their literacy block will start after the special. The point is they all get it. They all get that same amount of time, but it won't be as neatly at 9 o'clock like it is here. So we kept it here for that reason, but I wanted to explain that the literacy block starts when that teacher is scheduled to do literacy based on her schedule in the building where her planning is, lunch is, and her special is, because that's all different for individual teachers. They don't have the same schedule in the building. So when we build that master schedule, someone has to have a special in the morning, someone has a special at lunch, some have one. So their content is in and out of those times. But rest assured, whenever they log on for live instruction in person for literacy, the students at home will get that information from the teacher to know what time that literacy block starts. But for the purpose of this discussion, We kept the same standard to show you that. But I put that caveat in there to make sure I explained it. So lunch, again, we have 11:30 to 12:30, but that lunch period's on, we did it all the same time we were home. Lunch was one time. Again, the lunch, every teacher doesn't eat the same time in person. We wouldn't be able to have people covering classes. So that lunch will happen. The principals now have to go back. We have a master schedule. And so that lunchtime for different groups who are home will not always be 11:30. It'll be when that teacher's lunch is, based on where the specials go, all of that factors in to a master schedule. But they all will get a break for lunch. And then, so here we go for specials. Now, the special area teachers, when we were remote, we just took that block and said to the special area teachers, all teachers, because when kids are at specials, teachers are eating. That's the time they are prepping. That's their conference time. They must get it according to contract. And it's always when they take their kids to music, the teacher then goes and prep. So that has to still happen. So this is the teachers will have prep, though, different times during the day. They don't all prep at the same time in person. But when we were remote, we could just do it that way. And what happened, the special area teachers then met and did their specials. Remotely, when they did the specials, they could just simply, it was asynchronous. The kids had activities there, and they could work with students by grade. In person, every single class has their own special. You don't have all third grade together. Every third grade teacher has her own class only in special. So it complicates the scheduling a little bit. So they can't do both. The special area teachers are meeting in the building with individual teacher classes. So when the specials are for the kids at home, it will have to be asynchronous activities because they're live and the teachers are live in person in the building with the students who are in the building. So that's the piece that will remain asynchronous. The children will have specials, but it will be with asynchronous activities that teacher connected to the progression of lessons, nothing like busy work, just keeping them busy. It's going to be aligned to what's happening in the curriculum where they should be, but they will be activities and they may put in there, do 5 sit-ups at home. You are to do there are things they can do at home as best as they can. They can't supervise it as best as possible to assure that kids don't get hurt because you don't know if someone's home supervising this. When they're doing this stuff in the gym, the teacher's there and he can look for safety and caution that. That's why we don't want to give them, since they can't see the teacher during this time, it has to be a lot of asynchronous things that they can do minimally at home without harm. So the specials will be that way for the remote kids. Then after the specials, they kick back into our live instruction around math, the same like literacy. Math will be at different times, but they will have live math instruction with their class and teacher whenever it's scheduled. And then you go on down to the 2 to 3:20 time. So that's when our science and social study kicks in. Our science curriculum is taught with hands-on kits. The board even approved us purchasing very good hands-on kits that have kids explore, make, manipulate around science. So the science in person will be that way, but we don't have kits for the kids at home. The kids won't be able to manipulate these materials at home. So the science will be asynchronous for the kids at home because they don't have the kits to manipulate the instruction. So, and the teachers they're at that point, the science teachers are using the kits in person. So the science will be asynchronous due to the kits and so forth. The social studies, we're now going to replace that with math and reading intervention to try to build some of that loss. So the social studies will be replaced by math and reading intervention in person. And the social studies lessons then will be posted for those students to do around math and science, math and reading intervention. And social studies during the week, when the kids are at home, the week they're home, and the kids who are home always, they will get the social studies asynchronous. So we're still looking at this and trying to manipulate as many more times as we can. For example, when we're in the building, our special area teachers, like I said, each have their own schedule of classes they meet every day. So the music teacher has all her classes that are 40-minute vignettes of time that different classes come to her, all grades. So that's going to be in place. We're going to wait till we start, because where I see there are holes in that master schedule, where there's a block of time a teacher doesn't have a class, or there's more time in the schedule that we can manipulate it, we're going to look to maybe have some of them help with some of the co-teaching or checking in with kids. But we won't be able to see it because the principals we're developing that master schedule now. And once I see it, we'll be able to do more. We're going to be using, so that's the schedule. Then I'll get into some of the things I mentioned here. I don't know if you have questions around it, then I think I'll touch upon some of the other concerns. So we are going to send home a survey. Kelly and I worked on it. It's going to be so simple, maybe 3 questions. Are you planning, just so we can get numbers. We're moving to hybrid A, B, a kind of nice introduction. We want to get a handle on how many parents are going to send their child to school, either hybrid or not at all. And so we can know the numbers. So we will, and that will come home that week. All the ways we do text messages, on the email, text, and we're going to have our secretaries even when we don't start calling parents, so we get an idea of that. Now here's the piece: our parents have to indicate which lower learning mode they want. They will not be able to move in and out of it. So if I'm a parent and I decide my child's staying home, A, B, just staying home, that's okay. That's the choice they make. But I can't 1 week have a doctor's appointment, and I'm not being facetious here, but have something to do, and I want my child to go in this week. The choice they choose is the choice they choose. So we can manipulate the numbers and keep our hands on where each child is and what that instruction is, so we can monitor it effectively. So we're going to really, in that survey, ask them to make a choice. And so we can build a schedule around what our numbers are in person as well as at home. In person, especially around keeping that social distancing, which I think we're going to be fine, but it just helps to know. And we will lose kids if parents are just on their own, bobbing and weaving in and out of that. They have to make a choice. And our teachers are going to use the Google Classroom the same way we've been doing. That's going to stay in place. The Chromebooks, the Chromebooks for in-person and live instruction and at home. So the teachers will engage the kids in the room with the Chromebooks. We're getting them used to bringing these things back and forth, because the model we're hoping to present to you next month around our our Wilkinsburg Cyber Academy, they will need Chromebooks, and they're going to have to be able to manipulate and remember. So we bought cases for them for that as well. And so students who elect to remain at home will receive live instruction, but I told you I will not be able to see the students in the classroom. Teachers may be out of view. So that means the teacher won't always be in their view, because if they're in the person with students, then have little faces on the laptop, they're monitoring, and I put in there, I think, so to the best of their ability. But if I'm helping a little girl in the back, I'm out of view. They will see the teacher of both groups. When she's in front and the camera is on her from that laptop, they can see her. And that's where we're telling them to spend most of their time. But don't forget, in front behind the teacher is that board, that whiteboard that they use as an instructional tool to write on and to have content on. So a lot of times she won't block that. She'll be to the side. And if she has to, I'm saying she, but if the teacher has to help a student, they in the back, they're totally out of view. But she can always hear, because we bought them the speakers on a lanyard to go around their neck, so they can always hear. If I'm in the back, a kid on the screen, Dr. Iverson, can you help me with this? She can hear the questions and be able to come back and serve that student, but not always in view. That's just something that's just the reality of this. Teachers won't have the co-teachers. I talked to you about that, because everyone's teaching their classes inside. So we'll look to see where there are holes that we can possibly do something with co-teachers. And I'll speak to aides, Eric, in a minute. Teachers will monitor students who are in person and students who are at home. I think that's where I head to the best of their ability. They're going to use their laptops. I think I talked about that. I talked about the scheduling of how the language arts and math won't all be the same for everyone, but they will get it at the time the in-person kids are getting it. So kids at home won't get it a separate time. They're with their student, their class when that happens, but it'll be at different times in the day. And special area teachers, I told you about that. They're doing their own in person. So a lot of what they do for those at home, as much as possible, will be asynchronous. So what we did purchase for this is, and we ordered them directly after the board meeting. As we worked on it, we met Wednesday and Thursday, and we met even yesterday, because we always continue to think about what are we missing, what can we anticipate, what about this? So it's just always a work in progress, so that when we go live with this, meaning put it out there, we've anticipated all the questions. And more so, we really appreciate the parent who had comments, because it helps us know where, other things we may not have thought about that we need to consider. So we want these things here. Hopefully the carrying cases I talked about, the survey. And so we have professional development coming up right around the break when they get back, those half days they have around parent conferences. We had something scheduled for that around math. I've counseled it. We're going to move it to later. We're going to capitalize on those half days, 2 half days, and Jermaine is going to guide them through how to manipulate all this technology with kids at home and kids inside of their rooms. I have no doubt our teachers won't learn it. They've mastered the remote piece, but they do need some time to hear this. They don't know this piece yet. They have not heard how they're going to manipulate the kids at home. And so we need time to get in front of them and practice and show them. So when we start, they are ready to do that. So we looked at, the question around, how we're going, we don't want anything around attendance to be punitive, but now attendance, just like now, a remote, we take attendance. So it will be expected that kids who are at home are, since that's the mode parents have chosen, which is fine, that they are up and attending class. So I had in here, attendance will be taken. So those who don't, and we're going to still follow those attendance procedures we had in place for remote learning. Teachers now will be making still the emails. We still have that capacity to email parents. They still have that. We won't have the co-teachers necessarily calling for them, but we have that process in place that, after so many, what we do. We're going to try to see and utilize some of our support people in the building, our guidance counselors, our staff people, and I'm forgetting the group. But the support people in the building to support that, to assure to watch that attendance. So yes, that will be now attendance counts either way. So that will happen. We talked about aid. So on the board agenda for next week I'm going to be requesting your approval for aid. We have been posting aids this whole time. We had one applicant who applied, and thank goodness he was very good. So his name was on the agenda. You'll meet him Tuesday. We were going to use him as an aide in our special education classroom over at Kelly. But once we interviewed him, he was a better fit for Turner for our autistic support room. So he's an aide for that room when we're in person. And so we don't have him available. So we don't have aides. We still are hoping to get some, but I just don't know. They're just not biting out there. We didn't get a whole lot. Subs is another area where nothing's come out of the SMART sub program I talked to you about, even though we've endorsed it. Kelly's monitoring that very carefully. I just think it's got to, once COVID's done, and maybe the people will pay more attention to it, we're going to continue to put it out there. Haven't had a lot of bite from that. So our sub situation is no different than before COVID. We're continuing to get them. So the help to get subs continues to be not just a problem in Wilkinsburg. On my call, every superintendent is saying they just don't have subs. And then some of them who've been in person and have had to shut down a classroom because of a student case, or even a building, or had two or three teachers out because they were in person and teachers are out, they were really scrambling with how to get those classes covered because they were just putting it up. No excuse, it's just a reality. Subs aren't working. I mean, it's a COVID-infested environment right now. They're not willing to come into these schools. So right now, so that's one piece there. Let's see what else. Bus drivers. So I met with them, and I told you a little bit about that. We just simply have to just insist that kids wear masks. The mom had a concern about that. We'll have masks on the buses. We'll have them at the front door. Those who come to school, who elect to come in, must wear a mask. It's in our health and safety plan. That is just a requirement. And so bus drivers, they have asked me, how can I support them when the parent says, I don't want my child on the bus, should I let him on the bus? I said, that's that judgment call. I said, listen, I'm going to, as much as possible, really push hard around wearing this mask. And I think most of our parents are going to be okay with it. You'll have some mask on the bus. Make sure they're cleaning the buses 3 times a day, before, after runs, in between runs, all throughout. That's just a moving target. We have to wait and see when a scenario happens. Can I tell you, I didn't tell the bus driver, well, don't let the kid on the bus. I mean, if a mom insists, I don't, use your judgment call, try to reason with that parent, ask her to use one. But, if you have to let that kid get on the bus, call us, let us kind of intervene and take care of that for you. Because bus drivers don't want to get into that kind of struggle with parents. They look to us to solve those problems for them. Although the bus company does work with the bus drivers around training, around discipline and all. They definitely do have training, but they don't want that tug either. But we'll work on that as much as possible. But right now, I've said to them, try to really push that, and we will too. So we don't have Eric, I want to make sure I address, you had some very good things you sent to me. And we met on it very briefly last night. And did I address, it's open to questions for anyone. Did I address those concerns, or do you have any more suggestions or thoughts about that?
Yeah, I've got a couple things to talk about.
Okay.
Let's see here. I have some notes. Can I be clear on something? Because I just don't know currently what actually the plan is. Are we bringing in half of the students at a time now? Is
Yes.
that why we have the division? Okay.
Yes.
And
we're still on AB. We are. So Eric, we're still on AB. We divided the whole population in half. Half coming in 1 week while the other's home. It's just now that group that's home is getting live instruction. And then and conversely. And then the group that's home all the time is getting live instruction regardless. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so there's a ABC actually, right? I mean, there's the group that's at home,
yeah,
right?
Well,
no.
I mean, it's just an AB. The kids who don't come back, they're home. But if you're calling the kids at home a C, if that's what you're calling, I didn't designate that. We have an AB schedule.
Okay, but I want to make clear something, because I need to understand this in my mind. There are some kids who won't be coming in at all.
Yeah,
okay.
Possibly.
And so they won't be occupying seats in the building. Yeah. I'm thinking about physical, occupancy here. And
yeah.
the CDC has changed guidance recently. They think 3 feet is acceptable. I don't necessarily agree with that, but in light of that, and then I'm also considering that we have small classes, and we have nice rooms, and we have reconfigured things. I'm wondering why we have these constraints of teachers not being available to co-teach. So let me hang on. My notes are here somewhere. So we apparently we feel the need to give up co-teaching, right, when we return to class. I'm not quite sure why that can't continue. What are the obstacles to continuing with co-teaching?
Because every teacher in the building has their own class, and when we were
right, and so why couldn't we decide? Well, they don't now have their own class. We can combine them into 2 classes. I mean, I want to understand. Like that sounds like something we have control over.
If
right?
we combine them inside the building, class sizes are up, and we're not adhering to our plan around that social distancing. We can't get, we combine. So for example, when we were remote, we could put all 3rd graders together in special. And because we didn't have to worry about social distancing, all those kids were in their homes. If we combine in the building, grade levels like that, we don't have the space capacity in terms of maintaining our health plan. And secondly, our teachers don't, they have all those classes are individual classes that each teacher has in their own space. So that's the structure of in-person learning. They have their own schedule, individual schedule when they teach their kids. So every teacher has a schedule of classes in person.
However,
So-
there's an interesting point here. I think I know where Eric's going. Dr. Iverson, if it turns out that we have, let's say in 5th grade, let's say we have 3 5th grade classes, but
You
each
do.
one of them only has 4 students
Mhm.
who want to come back. There would be 4 students in A and 4 students in B, and all the rest of them, their parents elect to stay home permanently. Once we get started and we know those numbers, there might be an opportunity to combine some things that would free up a teacher to help be supportive in that co-teacher role. So
Yes.
let's say, you know what I mean? The thing is, we don't know.
We don't
We
know.
don't know how many are coming back, but Eric raises an interesting point, I think, in that we may be able to combine some classes depending on how many are coming back. You know,
Right.
you might have, what I'm trying to say is you might not need to operate 3 5th grades because there might only be 2 or 3 students in each one. So I think some of that remains to be seen, right?
Yeah.
We may be able to be flexible on that.
Yes, and I think we'll look at the numbers and some of that, for this purpose of this conversation, I wanted to be clear, right now, we don't have that capacity. We have
Right.
to wait for the numbers, and I will continue to look at that, and absolutely, that's something we can look at.
Yes.
Because, mhm.
Yeah.
But if
So
we're
that-
operating all three 5th grades, there is no teacher who's freed up to be the co-teacher. I mean, that's
That's
just
right.
the way that is.
If every, say, 5th grade teacher has a full half size, 10 kids that do come in, we would not combine them, and they will
Right.
have their own space and stay. And so in that capacity, in that scenario, they can't co-teach.
Right.
You know.
Is that where you were
So-
going, Eric?
Yeah, and I want to take a moment to just kind of explain my bigger picture, right? I mean, for me, you know, I don't think there's a magic bullet about success in education these days. You know, it's teachers looking into the eyes of students and students looking back. That's what makes kids smart. The more often we engage teachers with students, the better chance we're going to have to educate these kids and get them back to where they need to be successful in society. So, you know, my goal is to avoid asynchronous learning. I don't personally, I don't learn very well that way. I don't think a lot of people learn very well that way. I think when you know, direct attention between teacher and student, and there's an interaction there, I think that's the most important thing. So I want us to try to work towards a plan where kids are directly engaged with students, with their teachers. And so all the things that I'm going to talk about are related to that, like trying to get to that position. So I mean, if that's not the goal, if the teachers are feeling like, no, we don't want to go back to class right now, we'd rather just ride out the rest of the year and, you know, not come back and then wait till September to try to tackle this. You know, I hope that's not the attitude, because, you know, I want us back in school and I want the kids engaged. You know, like as you said, Ed, you know, other schools are doing this. They've got my sister's kids in Eastern Pennsylvania. They're in class since the beginning here, and you know, they're working it. And they have a much smaller school district. Don't get me wrong, but you know, a good third of our kids go to charter schools, so we don't have as many students as the roster includes. And you know, we've got 2 nice big buildings. Like I said, our class sizes aren't that big. I'm just feeling like we could manage this a little bit, and I don't know that we have to keep half the kids out all the time like that. So that's where I'm coming from. So that's the big picture. So.
Can I add to that, Eric? Just
Please,
because, yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think our goal should be to try to get the kids back, especially with the new CDC guidelines and all of the stuff that we purchased to keep people, to keep the kids safe. But can I ask a question, Dr. Iverson? How many, with the 6 feet apart guidelines, which we know now have been changed, and we how many students can we actually put in a classroom spaced 6 feet apart? And I remember we have those petitions we purchased too, those I don't
So
know, what
our
did we call
hybrid plan that we talked about with the 6-foot distancing was based on the hybrid plan AB, 10 or less kids in the classroom. The maximum was 10.
Okay, so the maximum would be 10, and that was before we even purchased all of the other things, you know, to put petitions in between things too. But in our class size at the pre-K, K and 1 level, we're talking our class size is 10 to 12 kids max, mostly around 10 and 11 to begin with, but then we're going to still split, and we know our attendance has not rarely been like 100%. And we know some of these parents aren't going to want to send their kids, to begin with. So is there any thought at all about, especially where class size already is so small, to bring the entire class back?
No, there was
Because-
not. We
Okay.
can consider that. Listen, I want to be clear. We all believe and know, as well as you do, we certainly know that in-person learning is the best way to go. Our discussions together, board and me, has always been around when we do transition back in the building, especially after a whole year of being remote, or even back when we presented this in October, just even after 1 quarter, we would start with hybrid. So the hybrid was the way. It's not just and we were doing it to assure the safety of our students and with our capacity. We didn't look at it from that lens. And so if that's where the direction we're going, we can certainly take that back and look to see how it looks in numbers in person. Today's presentation is around how it looks around hybrid.
I just think we have to be open, Dr. Iverson, and you already said yes to this, to looking at the results of what we have in terms of who's coming back. And if we have 3 fourth grades, and each one of those fourth grade rooms in week 8 only has 3 kids in it, then we might want to look at, hey, we don't need an A, B. We can just have all the kids coming back all the time because there are only going to be 6 of them, all together.
We'll do
We
that.
have to be flexible about that, but we also have to keep in mind that whatever we do has to be system-wide. So let's say that we can't combine 6th graders because a lot of them are coming back. So we can't mix and match because of siblings. So I think we're gonna have to play that by ear. Eric, I think you raised a good point. I agree with you. If there's a way to bring back, if there are only, I don't know what, 8 5th graders or 8 kids in a 5th grade teacher's room who are coming back all together, why divide them into 2 groups of 4 for AB? If we can safely bring them all back. And I just think we have to be, we don't know how many are coming back, but I would support making that change, even if it means a change once we get started, keeping in mind that we only have 9 weeks to do this. And it probably takes 3 weeks to implement a change. So,
And keep in mind for grades 3 through 6, they're testing.
Right.
So we'll be in testing then. So a combination of modes, in person for some, others, we don't want all the kids testing together. We have, those classes divided. That plan is in place. I mean, so making that decision impacts all of the systemic things that we have to look at. We need numbers. We can certainly do it, like you mentioned, Debbie, maybe the lower grades, but we do have some classes that are 20 and they're divided in 10-10. I don't know how many are coming though, how many are going to be. And so the numbers will help dictate what we can do. And to just unilaterally decide that right now, not knowing those numbers, we had not put any thought to that. We put all our thought into bringing them back around this hybrid as we said we would. But I hear clearly, and we're certainly willing to go back and look at that. The survey will come out next week. We'll get some very good numbers by grade, by kid, and that will help us determine, and that will come out before parents hear anything. We can certainly change it and say, well, we can do this in person. But again, we want to keep the testing, the 3-6 hybrid. We'd rather not bring all the 3, so every teacher has all the 3rd graders in the room, or 6th graders. Right. But let's just see first how many, some parents may not send them back even for testing. We just don't, and we may put that on the survey around question testing, because that we have to do no matter what.
I think that's, that's good that we do the survey first and find out, and that can be flexible. And I realize at the grades 2 through 6, the class sizes are a little bit bigger, but I really think the class size at Kelly, I think we could do better, for those kids, and to bring those little ones back. They're not being tested. And the class sizes are small, and I just think it's so hard for those the little ones to be able to sit at home for that period, that long without having some interaction. If we can. I like this plan much better than what was presented because I agree. I don't like the asynchronous for a whole week. And that would be my question. Another question, when the students who are on working at home, and yes, they'll be part of it. Well, how will they be able to ask questions to the teacher while they are at home and the teacher is in the classroom?
So they can, like now, say, Miss Dr. Iverson, I have a question. They're unmuted. Their sound is unmuted. They can ask a question.
Okay.
They can do. And when I'm on calls, like I do a lot of walkthroughs virtually, a lot of observations, and I watch the dynamic. And yeah, the kids on the screen while the teacher's talking, just say Miss Jones, or they, and on the screen, because the teacher's only talking to all of them, can see the hands being raised, but they will have to unmute and say, Miss, I have a question. And the teacher has a speaker, and so she will hear them and be able to address it.
So with the specials, like when they're doing the specials, and I realize that, the science say that they don't have the kits. So they're going to be doing some asynchronous stuff at home. Will it deal with science?
Oh,
or
yes.
Will it deal? Okay.
Yeah, and it'll be connected. Sorry,
It'll-
Debbie, I don't mean to interrupt. It will be connected to what they're doing hands-on, but they're doing this asynchronous
Okay.
piece. It'll be connected to all the instruction, home and in person, will be aligned with the curriculum and the standards. They're not getting different activities to keep them busy.
Okay.
Absolutely
All right.
not.
I just wanted to make
Yes.
sure that it was, so that when they come back the next week, then they'll be doing the lab work.
That's right.
With it.
That big group that comes back in, but that group that doesn't come back in at all will be doing asynchronous activities connected to what the science kits were on during the in-person instruction. Yes.
Okay.
And we may not have that many who choose to do that. We may have some. I don't know. I don't know what the population is going to say. The survey is going to be critical that we want to get out.
Yeah, I wish we would have been able to do the survey maybe a month or so ago, so we could have some information before, but it is what it is.
Well, we did do a survey, and some of that data we can use. We did the survey on the parent survey on the remote learning, the one that just passed. We do have some data around, and that was getting information from them around planning for next year, what kinds of things they would like to see. So, and we did get some good data. Remember, that was in the slide that we shared around. A lot of them did want to continue with some version of remote learning. So we have some data, but this is a different set of data that we need. So
right.
So that's a good point. Are we using that data that we took from the parents and their preferences to kind of plan how the classrooms and anticipate how the attendance is going to work there? Is that how we've kind of set up the model here?
No, that data was around plans for next year.
Oh, for next year. Oh,
yeah, it was getting their reflections around the remote experience this year. As we we were using that to plan what is going to be presented to you next month. And so, and when we started that survey, at that point, we were still we were still remote. The level of transmission in Allegheny County was still substantial. So, things have changed. This is a moving target, and things have gotten better, and we've moved to another level. We're moderate now, and then the CDC came back and PD for different kinds of guidance, and then the Department of Education came in and vaccinated all of us. So those are the pieces that have now impacted it while we're rushing to do something different.
Okay, so let me ask about this. Can we just estimate based on what we know, or even just guess what is the population of students in the classrooms on average? Is it going to be exactly half of what it usually is?
We did divide it completely in half, yes. Based on our numbers right now, projected numbers, how many we have in third grade regardless, and we divided it in half, yes.
Okay. And
although that half, you're right, Eric, may not even show up. We've used the numbers on the numbers we have on roll for those grades, and we basing it on those numbers.
Okay, and okay, so inside the classrooms, then I had thought that there was some mention of how the teachers would be interacting with the remote learners, and they might be turning their laptops around because they don't have they might not see everything. There's no cameras in the classroom. I guess we have funds available through the government to install new technologies and add things. I mean, maybe we should consider adding some cameras or some displays or something like that, so that remote learners can feel more like they're participating in the classroom. So, some camera that, can see the teacher continuously, or at least see the classroom area and see the other students in the classroom. So they feel like the remote learners feel like they're part of the class, and then, the other students who are in the class can actually, see what they're seeing on what's being seen on the classroom, so they understand what's happening as well. Do we have the funds? Can we talk about doing something like that?
We brought that up, Eric.
Jermaine.
Jermaine, yeah, I'm sorry. Dr. Iverson and I were talking the other day, so we got Jermaine on the phone because I also thought of the, I called it motion sensitive cameras. And there are some, they're kind of as tall as sort of an Echo, maybe a little taller than an Amazon Echo thing. And at the top, it can swivel. The camera can swivel because it senses motion, and it could follow the teacher around. And Jermaine thought for a minute, and he came up right away with 2 or 3 reasons why that could be really disruptive there in terms of their accuracy and stuff like that. But Jermaine he said he would still look into that.
Yes.
To find if there was a camera that could follow the teacher around that would free things up and be more, quote, natural looking and feeling, as you just described. He also, Dr. Iverson, you remember, I mean, you can't put everything in the report you sent up, so I hope you don't mind me bringing up some of these things. We also looked at, is there a way to use the smart boards and plug them in so that what's being displayed is what we're seeing right now, all the little boxes, but really large on the wall in the room, or flat screen TVs that could be connected. I said, why don't we buy some flat screen TVs, big ones, and put them in the rooms? And Jermaine thoughtfully pondered that for a minute, and he said, okay, but every teacher is going to need 2 laptops then.
That's right. We got to have,
because of capacity or something like that, Eric. I didn't listen, but Jermaine's very thoughtfully looking at this to find out how can we make it more, I don't know what to call it, human or natural feeling. But even I had some of the same thoughts that you just expressed, and it's Jermaine's job to make sure that works.
And he didn't say no. Right. And he said, let me look into it. We are talking 6 weeks of school. So they will have to be, we're trying to start now. So that won't happen, we know, by the time we open, but certainly by next fall. But he did say, like Ed said, let me look into it. We will, and then not just throwing equipment in rooms. We can't do that without giving teachers professional development on how to do it. It's not as simple as that. And even so because I will tell you, a lot of the superintendents on my call who talk about teachers who are trying to do this, it becomes very overwhelming. And true, it's their job. I get it, but they learn this is another skill set they've had no experience with. We just can't throw in a brand new camera even now and say, do it. We got to give them time, so that we want it to work well. We don't throw people in any situation where we say, do it without the proper amount of time to become proficient in it. It's because it won't work and the kids aren't learning anyway. So these are things that we are in our plan when we talk to you next month around certainly having these pieces in place, because we're trying to look at 2 different pathways to offer as learning pathways to our families next year for those who do not want to send them back to school, similar to now, and those who are those who are going to be inside the school, how we can make sure we integrate more of this, what you're describing, during the actual school day. And then a whole academy for those who elect to remain remote, but enroll in our own cyber program and get this that way. So, it's just the timing of it, and we just don't have it in place right now. So Jermaine on that call said to Ed and I, again, teachers are just going to have to turn, because the laptops have the built-in camera. They're going to have to turn their laptops around, and they can manipulate that all around the room and just place it somewhere where all the kids can see her or him all the time, but it has to be the manipulation of the teacher doing that through the with their laptops.
Yeah,
We did-
and one other thing about that, Eric, one good thing about Jermaine, a strength he brings to us is, you know, he was formerly, his appointment, it still is, I think, he's very closely linked to the intermediate unit. And so
yes.
he has a whole network of people to talk to. So when I was bringing up different things, he would think about them. He would give me and Dr. Iverson his opinion, but he said, I'm going to reach out. So his approach is always to ask other districts, have you tried this? And did it work or did it fail? Rather than us do some risky experiment and find out that using the smart board doesn't work. So he's putting some good energy, I think, into this.
Yeah. And he's involved, for you to know, in all my meetings, and he was on my call yesterday with the AIU. Yes, he does come from the AIU. We contracted for him. So, but Eric, in answer to your question, that's not in place for right now. But no, we have thought about it. We know that's where we want to go. So it's
Okay.
just,
You know, I guess I'm somewhat disappointed that we haven't already kind of, you know, figured out where we should be going with this, because you know, we've had a lot of time to think about remote learning and how to make it work once we have a hybrid. So I don't feel like we're in the best position right now to take advantage of the technologies. You know, we're still in learning mode right now, so that's unfortunate. But I do appreciate what I heard. I heard a commitment that this will be done by next fall. Right, we will have all the technology in place that we need for this type of remote learning, right?
we hope, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a decommit right there. We hope is not a plan. You know,
No, Eric, no, I take, you know, let me just say to that. Yes, I said we hope too. I mean, my hope word is just taking care of those things that I may not be able to control, don't know what they are yet. My intent is to have these things in place. And when I share the vision to you next year, you will clearly see me or hear me articulate how the thinking we have put into this throughout since this experience will address be very thorough. In reference to this year and the remote plan we've been on, I mean, what we've done is we have stayed with the plan that the very board and I approved together. And so, yes, and so, I mean, I sense where you're coming from with that. We collectively made a decision to remain remote through March, and then to look at this hybrid model and to implement our model. But a lot of variables changed since that time that we're trying to adjust and do right now. And so, I won't negate and take away from the great work we did do and our teachers did do with the remote piece. But I am, as your superintendent, very cautious around throwing things in there without making sure they can do it and do it well. And so I stuck to the plan. And this was the plan that we agreed to. And so that's what we did. But I think we're going to be able to, we've adjusted right now, and we're going to be able to help our kids who are going to stay home and provide that. I mean, that's another layer that I think is another layer to our remote experience. That we are now offering that to kids who don't want to come back. That was not part of the original hybrid plan. So we've made an adjustment to do that. And I think that's the piece I celebrate and think that we are addressing.
If you look back at the plan that we originally voted on, it's clear we weren't even thinking about the possibility that all the kids wouldn't come back. That's when we followed other national models and came up with that hybrid AB plan. But you can tell from the narratives, it wasn't in our minds like possibly half of our student population would not want to come back. And then that throws the whole AB thing into some flux, I guess. And that's why I think we got to look at the data. How many are coming back? The number coming back, Eric, won't really be 50%. The ABs won't be half of the kids. It will be half of the kids who said, yes, I'm coming back. That's even a smaller number. So it may be that we can make some modifications that will accomplish some of the things you're talking about. Again, it depends on, I think a lot of it depends on how can we get the teachers up to speed and comfortable and trained with whatever those changes are going to be before we make them happen.
And another point I need to make, lo and behold, you're right, Ed and Eric, once we got involved in it, we learned so much, and we found we never anticipated anyone would want to stay home because we were of all getting them in person. And lo and behold, we found out a lot of our parents prefer it and don't want to come back. And that's new data that we're addressing right now. So that's what threw a wrinkle into all of this. A lot of our parents don't want to come back only because their kids learn better at home now. And so when I talk to you about the plan for next year, the integration of more technology during the day, we're going to continue to hold meetings with them online, because when we did it this year, we had better attendance. IEP meetings, remember I reported, our parents said, I like meeting this way better. So we're not going to stop that. That's how we're going to make sure those things continue. But we learned along the way. None of us knew how to handle this. This challenged everyone around how you do that. We were not a remote district, and where we are right now is I think we've made tremendous progress in how we've tried to stay ahead of the curve and how we've anticipated and tried to plan accordingly. And so we'll continue to do that.
Hello, everyone.
I would hope. Hi, Monica.
Hi. I just wanted to, excuse me, add in there. I'm sorry. I want to thank you, Dr. Iverson, for throwing together this plan. You know, in a pretty, you know, since our last planning meeting, that was a quick turnaround. So I do appreciate you guys getting together and coming up with a plan. It seems very workable to me. Thank you for adjusting, because I know that I think at the planning meeting, I didn't realize that was something you were just presenting what we all had agreed to back in the fall. And so, but my thing was like, well, we didn't know what we know now, right? Back in the fall. So we need to adjust and modify, and you have done that. So I appreciate that. I wanted to ask, is there a plan? I know you did mention communicating to parents, but I wanted to see, is there a plan to communicate thoroughly all of the options, the plan, like how it's going to work to parents via email and other forms before we send out the quiz, asking them what they want to do? Because I think that's important for them to understand what the options are before they choose.
Okay, well, that's a good feedback, because we were going to send out the survey. Now, if you remember, we had a communication plan in that PowerPoint, but that's all changed now. And so, you know, because we have a new plan. So Kelly and I are working on what that communication would be via email, text, and all. We were planning to build that out to go home after we had the numbers. So your recommendation is send it out, get this out beforehand.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
right.
yes, because I think it's important for them to understand, you know, what they're choosing, so that they know what it's going to look like.
Very good.
Before we say, hey, because then we don't want them saying after the fact, wait, now that I, you know, hear about what that means, I want to change my mind. Once we get the, you know, people commit to something, like you said, we're going to hold them to it. So it's important that they know what they're committing to before they actually do.
That's a great
Very good feedback. That's a great point. And I'm glad you caught us. The survey has not gone out yet, and we can certainly invert that. And Kelly and I will talk about that. Thank you.
That's a great idea, Monica. One question, Dr. Iverson, when, you know, I know you'll be monitoring the attendance and stuff like that, and I know you've been sharing attendance with us on the whole remote stuff thing. How will you share attendance with it? How will we know as the board, like how many students are showing up on, you know, on an A week or a B week, or you know, because I would hope that if the class size is actually going to be 3 or 4 students in a classroom, that we adjust pretty quickly to say, hey, with attendance being like this, we can bring all of the kids back in some of these classes, you know.
Well, we'll still take attendance, like I mentioned in the plan. Attendance will be still taken for those home remotely, period, all the time, or on their B week or A week. Attendance is taken remotely, and that will generate the same report you get now of live attendance of students.
Okay, but how will we know how many are actually showing up on their A week when they're in school, so that we know that here the teacher she has, you know, we only have 3 or 4 kids each week that are coming in this particular classroom.
That spreadsheet we get every single week with live attendance will have to be modified. It's going to have to show how many are quote attending live in the classroom and how many are attending at home remotely. So that spreadsheet's going to have some additional columns added to it.
And once we know who those kids are, so we'll have to add another column because it's a whole new data point
Right.
at this point.
Right. So we will be able to see which ones are showing up versus which ones are remote. Okay.
Yeah. And Debbie, to your point about it, we do have small numbers. We can possibly bring them back in person. That's something we said we will look at. But bear in mind, bringing in a family, one kid in person and one stays on hybrid because he's testing an AB week is something we need to consider. You know, the hybrid plan we had was everyone. The combinations within that will make it more complicated. I can very easily have low numbers in the pre-K and K and they can come in full person, but that sibling of that child who's a Turner, who's coming in AB, you know, because the numbers aren't the same there because we didn't have those small classes. You have all kinds of permutations, there that we won't be able to address all of those. I mean, it becomes almost, and I mean this very respectfully, but that becomes a nightmare to manage. So we have to find a way where we can keep our hand on it. And our sibling, you've heard Miss Washington in her absence and how I always respect, she brings up, she likes one mode for families. She doesn't want families to have to pick and choose. And one's home while the other, so that what you're describing may end up being something like that. And do we want to go that way?
Well, but couldn't we ask? We ask them if they could say, if I'm at my child, like, you know, I'm scheduled for a B week and only because of the schedule. But if I wanted as a parent, you know, it's like, hey, is there an option for my child to be there every week? You know, especially at those lower classes where we know we could accommodate them. Is that possible? Even though we know we could only do it at the elementary or at the pre-K, K-1 level. And let the parents decide that.
Well, then that goes back to the point where once they decide their mode, so we're going to change that then, because once we know what mode they're choosing, that's their commitment. We can't, you know, so if a parent says, you know, but if we do that, I mean, we can have all kinds of, either we're all in person or we're all hybrid as much as possible. We'll look at that because you'll end up having all these different variations that we're trying, I think, to try to please, because I don't know how we manage all of that. I don't know how we keep tabs on all of that. It becomes just, and I don't want to commit to yes. I said we will look at it once we get the survey. Can we talk back once we have numbers and I can get back to you about how it looks? And if there's an opportunity to bring everyone back, I mean, testing is going to happen either way, but we really still, you know, we didn't want to mess with 3 through 6 because that has to happen. So, but they're siblings of those kids and Kelly. So it's a lot of things to consider. It's not a clean decision to make right on the spot today. But I've written them down. We'll definitely continue to talk and look at those numbers. Let's start with the survey, and I'll get those numbers and be able to tell you as soon as it's done. We're going to run it for a full week. Hope we get a good response by Friday. I'm going to try to get it out by Monday, and we'll see.
Good. I think that's good. I think the adjustments that you made are very helpful, at least to me. It makes me feel a little bit better.
Too.
I'm with Eric and Ed, and you know, we'd love to bring the kids back all together. If there's a way to bring the Kelly kids back 100%, because those classes are so small, that and I just feel that based upon the data that you gave us, that reading data about how those kids looks like they're going backwards, if we could just get them there every day for the 16 weeks or whatever that we have left, I mean, that would make a huge difference for those kids. And I realize that we don't have that same luxury with the class size at the grade at Turner. But at least let's try to help these, you know, do as much as we can for what kids we can.
All of that is going to have factored into it the notion of siblings being together. And so to say that we're going to bring back all 75 of the first graders, and they're going to be 100% there, no AB, just A every single week. without thinking about what that does to their older brother and sisters or somebody who watches them at home, or vice versa, is just because we said in the very beginning we were not going to break up families. So there's that whole angle also that ties one hand behind our back. So that's why I said I think this is going to be fluid. I think this is the plan for getting us started, but really I think everybody knows that it's going to depend somewhat on the numbers that we get and how many say, nope, I'm staying home. I just looked, there are, for example, New Jersey has way more school districts than we do, but New Jersey has 145 school districts that do not offer a remote option. They're just, you come to school or too bad. And so that's that, So I know that it sounded draconian, and I know our district, our families have special challenges. It sounded like punishment if we said we're going to mark kids absent if they don't come back. But there are districts that have done just that, So I don't want to get off on a tangent, but sometimes when I look back at this, I wonder, were we too cautious? Did we worry too much about trying to get it perfect and protect every single person? And because of that, we lost opportunities to bring them back? I don't know. I mean, hindsight, no sense looking back. We just got to look at this plan and see how are we going to make the last 9 weeks the best we can make them, realizing there's going to be some adjustments. That's my 2 cents.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we also, at the elementary level, at the Kelly level, we know our enrollment is way down than what we anticipated. We lost, a lot of kids didn't choose to send, or a lot of parents didn't send to choose their kids to pre-K and K, which we didn't anticipate at the time. So we do have some flexibility, and I'd like us to think we can still be open. And even if it is part of the survey, maybe the parents, before we decide, maybe the parents are okay with splitting the kids up. If my 4th grader has AB, but my kindergarten kid can be there every week, let them decide.
I agree, especially for pre-K and K. A lot of those kids have never been in a live classroom. They don't even know what it's like to go to school. And so the whole acclimation and orientation and onboarding process, the teacher establishing with the kids, what's it like to be in a classroom with other kids? Some of them don't know what that is. And so that's going to be an enormous change for those kids. If they could all be there, that's great. I think it's great. It gives them way more opportunity for them to be ready to go into 1st grade or 2nd grade, wherever they're going next year. So yeah, I agree. It's just, we don't know how many parents are going to say, no, hell no, my kids aren't coming back. And we have to accommodate them because of the way we structured all this.
And I think it does depend on the numbers. Say to that question, Debbie, I'm okay. I'm all right with my kindergartner being there full day, although they may have a sibling who's on AB. I mean, it depends on the numbers. I'm not one who quickly makes a decision based on, and I mean this respectfully, one parent. It has to be enough parents to want this. We may not get enough numbers to say even yes to what you suggested, Debbie. Do we make a decision and do it? I mean, we have to look at what's best still for the good of everyone and where the best medium is. So as much as I respected the parent at the meeting, absolutely her input was very valuable. That was one parent we heard from. And so we need to now go back and get the data and see what the others, we don't know how many parents even thinks like that parent. And so we did, and we got a new plan. We need that, but we are reacting to what a parent said, and we took it to heart. But we have not heard from any other parent about that. That's their preference. And as leaders, we don't make decisions based on just that. I mean, it was very sensitive. It piqued our curiosity. So we got to be careful around that. We can't make assumptions. Everyone wants what we're talking about. We have to. I think we need to look at the data. And my job is to make the best decision for the good of the group and good for the district. I get calls all the time from individual parents around what they want around an individual issue. And if I change everything I did based on what one parent wanted, and it may be valuable to that parent, I would have 300 and different things I'm doing. And I mean this respectfully, but I'm not one who's going to jump on changing a lot based on I get a complaint. I think what you said is noteworthy. Let's see how many say. We can even include a question like that. But it has to be enough of a group of parents who want that before we make that broadly a district thing. around, that's what we're going to do. Second, I forgot to mention about dress codes. Eric, you had a concern around that. So at the meeting, I think in the chat, it was something around, are kids going to be able to wear uniforms? I will tell you my thinking on it. I'd like to hear from the board. I mean, we as a board, we've approved the dress code. The board, we have a dress policy. Our board, we have said prior to me getting here, our kids wear uniforms. So what we've done in the district as administrators, we enforce that. If we don't want them to wear uniforms, we can certainly change it. And I will tell you my thinking on it right now. You probably couldn't find a uniform because they're not in the stores. They're only in the stores around the fall and all. So parents will have a hard time doing that. I'm okay with pulling off that, but we answered that question based on what our policy is. We're never going to answer against what the board has told me to do. And so we do have uniforms. So with that on being on the table, are you okay with, we allow them not to wear uniforms? It's the last 6 weeks. They probably, like I said, can't find them. We have a lot in the building, but not a lot for everyone. And we don't want to put another burden on our parents. You know, stimulus checks are yes, but many may not still be working to go find sneakers in a certain colors. Why add that headache to them? But that's my thinking on it.
I agree with you 100%.
I'm okay with
I
that
don't
too.
think I don't think we should enforce that policy right now.
For the rest of the year. Yeah, let's get them in.
Ed, do we need to make a resolution or something like that to suspend the policy for the remainder of the year?
I doubt it. I mean, we can just say by consensus concurrence that, it may even be in there somewhere that I think we can assume that the superintendent has some leeway there, but we can look at it and ask Matt, but I don't think so, Eric. But
okay,
I
think
ask.
it's an agreement between the board basically right now. I think we're all in agreement, right? I mean, is there any dissent at all? Nope.
Mm-mm.
So, I mean, I'd say Dr. Iverson has all the discretion to suspend the policy as she sees fit.
Yeah. Thank you, Eric. As long as they're appropriate, I'm okay with it. They're not coming in, appropriate. I mean, let's get them in and let them come to school and focus on just that and not have to worry about being in the office because they don't have on the right color shirt.
Right.
Sounds great. That's great. Yeah.
I mean, it's like, what's really important here? And where, and let's focus on just what do we really want here? We want them in school. We want them learning. Do we really want to focus on the sneakers they have on or the shoes?
Right.
A principal can spend all day dealing with dress code issues and not focus on instructional leadership.
Got it. I have a question though. I guess it'll get refined, Dr. Iverson, but the idea of the student getting on the bus without a mask and the bus driver not doing anything about it bothered me a little bit. So I think if we're going to allow kids with no masks to get on buses, which bothers, I don't know what to do about it, but that statement just bothers me.
Me too.
And then we're going to have to ask those bus drivers to phone ahead or somehow alert the school or something so that child can be met, by someone who says, put on a mask, or we're going to call your parents to come and get you, because it can't be, even the kid getting off the bus with no mask and then getting in line to come into school, even that bothers me. And that's going to bother the teachers also. If I were a teacher, I wouldn't like knowing that. So I'm surprised the bus companies aren't going to enforce it that you don't get on the bus without a mask. But I understand, I guess, if they don't want to get into that, they don't want to be the mask police. But I hope that you're going to talk with your team about that. What do we do about that? I have to say that from what I noticed when I was reading to some kids, the kids are really well behaved. They're well trained so far in terms of when to mute and when to speak and not to shout out. I mean, I was kind of impressed with that. And so I'm hoping that they will be the same way about wearing masks. But remember, they've been at home for 6-7 months now, not wearing masks at school. So we're going to have to, I'm sure you'll come up with a way to handle that. But safety, it has to be safety first.
Well, let me talk a little to that. So we have a student handbook that outlines the discipline, the progressive discipline steps we follow for different infractions. Basically, our students are to take directives. They're to do what they're asked to do. And it's in our handbook that they are to obey the direction of the bus drivers, because their day starts when they get, technically when they get on that bus. They're on our time. So we're responsible for the discipline, the safety, and all of that to and from school and during the day. Our bus drivers do have bus referrals. We have given them referrals that they can write up a kit about behavior on the bus. So there's some pieces there. So something like this, a child refusing to do whatever, would be a bus referral the bus driver would give to us. Now, bus drivers do training with the bus company around strategies they use, but we've trained them around our handbook, and we've given them PBIS incentives. We want them to recognize good behavior on that bus to help minimize the bad behavior. So we say, you know, we train them around, you know, if you see kids behaving, give them token, blah, blah, blah. So it helps increase that. They have all those things. They work in collaboration with us. But when they really do have a problem with because we've had parents at the bus stop to give them a really hard time, that's where they are not going to get into a tug.
Right.
And so they will then refer that to us. So in that sort of case, the bus company, having given them direction, I didn't want them to get into that kind of tug. Because I'm also thinking we don't want the kid not to come to school. And, you know, we want them in school. So how do we just get them in there? And then, like you said, Ed, I think we'll meet him at the door and make sure he gets the mask. But that's a conversation later with that parent, a phone call with Miss Jones around blah, blah, this, what's expected. We need you to work with us. We're trying to keep everyone safe, adhere to these. We will it's not just discipline. We always follow up and we talk to the parents. We may have some to do that, but Ed, I will. They don't have a way of radioing ahead or to us. They just hand us a referral when that bus pulls up and will say, this little boy would not sit down. And the principal right there takes it. So that will be the piece, the time the principal then will make sure that child gets a mask. Right there, a call needs to be made to the parent and to make sure that doesn't happen again and what's expected. And thank you very much. We need your cooperation. And hopefully that doesn't happen again. We don't want to discipline kids even right away and suspend them. That could be even a suspendable offense. I don't know if it's in a handbook like that, but so we have things in place for that, but we're talking really exceptional kinds of things now that we never anticipated would become a problem. But
yeah, I just think in the messaging, a couple things, like if we make it real clear in bold, you got to pick one. Are you remote or are you in the AB category, you know, and masks are required to get on the bus. Some things in bold, that'll help us. That's all. I don't want to belabor that.
All right.
Oops, sorry.
As
Any
one
other
thing-
questions?
Just one
as one of
comment.
the, I'm sorry, go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, Eric?
I'm not pleased that the transportation company doesn't seem to be cooperative on enforcing mask policy. You know, that's not a discipline issue. That's a public health issue, right? Masks on kids is it's a medical thing that prevents transmission. That's not just a behavioral thing. So I think it gets exception. I think it would be better, I think, if we had the cooperation of the transportation company to agree to enforce that type of thing. You know, I realize we do have a mechanism for handling behavioral issues like that with the slips, and that's great. That's, you know, I think if we have to, that's the way we should handle it. But I would much prefer if the transportation company would take the onus on themselves to enforce the mask policy, right? Just stop the bus. If somebody doesn't have a mask on, kid doesn't get on if he doesn't have a mask on. That, you know, if we needed to hire people to be monitors on the buses, you know, I think that, you know, I would consider funding that. I would consider an increase in cost on our transportation budget if that were to take place, if we were to get that type of cooperation. So if the bus company isn't negotiating with us, maybe it's time to consider talking to somebody else. But that's as much as I need to say about that. I don't think that we have to go too far down that path. But please, Deb, you had some comments.
I agree with that too.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think we should, they should be enforcing that and then just reporting back that there were, I don't know how many families or whatever. I'm sure that the families will be calling anyway to say if their child wasn't allowed on the bus.
I don't think it's going to be a major problem, but there are going to be one or two outliers maybe.
Yeah, maybe one or two. Yeah. I mean, the parents who aren't sending their kids back, it's for the reasons of safety. So I don't see them not putting a mask on because they are cognizant about safety.
kids all have their own ways of expressing their independence. Tanya said that in one of her grandchildren's classes, there's a little boy who they just have a hard time getting to put a shirt on. He just wants to be there with no shirt on. And the teacher says, you have to wear a shirt in school. You know, go put your shirt on, Dante. And Dante says, I'm not in school. And the teacher says, yes, you are in school.
Yes, you are.
So little kids have their own ways of sort of being, this is me. And I don't wear a mask because I'm Superman, whatever. So we're going to have one or two outliers, and
Sure.
maybe there's a good natured way for bus drivers to deal with that. But as long as we know that nobody's going to get away with it on a repetitive basis, I think that satisfies me.
Yeah, I think so too. We'll definitely be more be cognizant about that, and talk to the bus company. I meet with him all the time. Keith from TJ Myers, TC.
What else?
So the thing that I was just going to ask as part of the survey, and I don't know, maybe it's not in, but the options were, I think Ed, you stated it was either A, B, or remote, right? We're going to ask the parents about. Is there an option for on the survey to say if, just a separate question, if you could have both, just an A option, come back full time each time, could we see how many would be interested there?
We can add that. That's not on there now, but we can add that.
And I'm just wondering, because how many, if it was possible to bring them back full time, that would give us some good information that whether their parents are interested or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. Mm-hmm. We can add the question to that. I'll work with Kelly, Debbie on that wording. Okay. I think that is a question on the remote, the feedback one, because again, we wanted to find out what they prefer. I'll go back to that, but we can say it.
All right, Dr. Iverson, I need to be reminded about how we're handling PSSAs. Are PSSAs also being administered in ABAB, or are the Turner kids all coming in together to take their, no, they're also being done ABAB. Okay.
ABAB.
And there's no option. Law requires you to be there for your PSSA test. The only exemption is religious, as I believe that's
right. So the parents who don't, that's what they said. I'm sorry, Ed. They said the participation rate, the state is not going to hold that accountability measure against districts because the only option of opting out is for religious reasons. But you've got nothing from the parent. They don't decide to come in for testing. They're not counted.
Okay.
And it does hurt our participation rate, absolutely.
Sure.
Because they want 95% in districts. You want to make sure we get all our kids tested. But in all my meetings, it's not changed. They cannot opt out of testing unless for that reason. If they don't show up for testing, we know it's going to hit your participation rate. We'll take that. The state will take that into consideration. They have to show up.
Yeah, that might be an incentive at Turner for more students to actually be in person. It might, who knows? But okay.
So let me ask that now that you switched to the PSSA. And Dr. Iverson, could you refresh, what's the flexibility that we have? I thought that when you presented that you said that we could push the PSSA back to, even at the summer if we had to, but you had some concerns about the, teachers monitoring. And the cost. Well, I don't think we should ever have any concerns about cost. We have lots of money that the government has given us, so we should be able to do that. Whether the teachers can get the monitors, that's another thing. But I have some concerns about, we're bringing the kids back. You're trying to acclimate them, get them back for a couple of days, and then all of a sudden we're going to be testing them right away. Do we have flexibility to move that testing to maybe be more towards June rather than in April, to get them acclimated, get them back in the classroom, get them working before you sit them down and say, you have to sit here for 3 hours and take a test? Do we have that flexibility?
I will have to go back and the testing. We can move the testing move it back. We have to be done by a certain time. I will have to talk to the test coordinators to kind of look at that schedule again. So your point is we have a week they're coming in for a reacclimation, then before they start testing. So if there's if they have after the reacclimation, they're not going to test. They're still on A/B week. So a week of in-person instruction is what you're saying prior to them starting the test. So is that what I'm hearing, Debbie? Because
what I'm saying, my concerns are, it's so, we want to get the kids excited about coming back to school again, right? And to be able to get some type of normalcy. But because this is happening in, April or March instead of April, actually, it'll be instead of October. And it's the PSSA testing time, we're going to be bringing them back, and all of a sudden they're going to be tested. I mean, if I was a student, I would just be real frustrated that, oh gosh, I get to go back to school, but now I have to sit and be tested. Could we move that testing back to later in the year, the end of May, or the beginning of June before school ends? Can we at least get them in to get more, in person time with their teacher before we throw testing at them? And do we have that flexibility to do that? Because if we had the flexibility to do it over the summer, but we didn't do it because of this, why can't we just move it back to May or June to get them more acclimated to being back in the classroom?
I just have to look at it. I mean, on the A/B schedule, Group A is taking English language arts 1 week, and then Group B is taking it the next week. So I don't know if we have enough weeks left in the year. I don't know when the last day of the school is and when last day for teachers. I mean, they're not, we're alternating groups taking the test. So it's like a 2-week period, we're doing English language arts. Then another 2-week period, we need to do on alternating math, then science. So you're talking, that's like 6 going into 6-8 weeks, because we're alternating. Each group gets a week to take the test. They're not taking it together, 2 tests together. So I have to go back and look at the last day of school, look at that alternation rotation to see how that works. Teachers still available then. We have not moved our calendar from the last day of school because we're still getting out at the same time. I can't answer that right now. I would have to look at that.
Okay, I was just wondering.
It's not ideal. I get it, Debbie. It's not ideal. Nothing's ideal about this year.
Yes, I know. And I wish they would have just said we didn't have to do the PSSA testing, and just start next year with, some type of pre-testing, but they didn't waive that. So, but it just, I don't know. I wish we could just push it back.
Let me look at the window of testing, how it looks when we rotate for each test, and how many days are left in the year, and when is the last day our teachers are there, because I think it's mid-June they're gone. So we start we can't start too late to get all the tests in on a rotation schedule. So can I just look at it and see? I don't know.
Yeah, shame on the state, but. Okay, I appreciate just looking at it. That's all. But
and I'll let you know.
Get it. I get it. If it's too complicated and you've already got the schedule down, I get that.
Any other questions about reopening? I think you made a lot of progress here, Dr. Iverson, you and your group. And I don't know, I'm just to sum up, I'm glad that Jermaine's going to continue to look at, are there technology enhancements? Eric's right, we certainly have the money to do it right now. And so especially if those are items that we would be able to continue to utilize as we, I know I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but I know that it's probably not very politically correct to talk about a cat out of a bag anymore, is it? But I know that in part of your future vision, we're going to be looking at how can technology bring kids back from charters and things like that. So those investments that we do now to make the last 9 weeks stronger could be things that really pay off for us once we hear your plan. So I'm glad to hear Jermaine's doing that. I'm glad to hear we have some flexibility around what we're going to do. I'm glad that we're going to ask families you got to pick one. You can't be jumping back and forth, because that's not going to be good for teachers or anybody else. And I think we got a lot. I know there's a lot of work to do for implement. This is just the plan. Now you got to implement it. So there's a lot of work to be done, but I think everybody would find this plan a whole lot more, in our opinion, a whole lot more attractive and beneficial to kids. So I think we're all grateful. I think we're all grateful for that. So,
Yeah.
any other
Thank
questions or concerns? Welcome back,
And-
Danny.
Thank you.
And
I've
I
been
do-
listening, folks. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I know.
And I do see that LaTanya, I think, has been on. She's been calling, and because she does have.
Well, she texted me with a question that she had. It was about uniforms, and she also had
okay.
it was also her idea to buy the large flat screen TVs, and I raised that one. I can talk to her about why we're not jumping on that right away. But Jermaine, as soon as Jermaine, he thought about it for a while, and he thought about all the hookups and the Bluetooth and this and that, and he said, I think the teachers are going to need 2 laptops each if we want to do that. And so to have without the co-teacher even in the room, no aid to manipulate 2 different machines and so on, his initial reaction was, that's not workable. But he said he was going to talk with all his colleagues to find out, are the districts doing that? So,
Good, yeah.
If I could throw in my 2 cents too, from what I've seen with the performance of these so-called all cyber schools, they have been so horrible. I mean, that I think that it's a good time to build our presence in the community. If people choose that, that they come to our school. I mean,
That's right.
People say, oh, my kid's going to charter school. Well, what are their performance levels? I mean, if they're terrible, which many of them are, and they make a lot of money. I'm really against for-profit education. I mean,
Me too.
Very against it, because
Yep.
when it works, it might work for wealthy, but I don't think it works for most people, and certainly not in our community.
No.
And I just think that we need to really rebuild confidence in our school system in Wilkinsburg.
Right.
Dennis, I think you'll really like then Dr. Iverson's proposal for what we would do in the next 3 to 5 years.
Terrific,
Yes.
terrific.
Yes. I think we can be any and everything to our own community. And I think this is the perfect time to capitalize on that. And I think you're going to love what we're proposing to do around 2 pathways of learning. And that's how we're framing it, to give more options.
Okay, please. Yeah, and please include civics, a little bit of history or a lot of history, appropriate history and geography, because, and maybe some, well, I won't go any further, but we need civics classes.
Yeah, get out and vote when you're in pre-K.
Exactly.
Get that in there. Set up some president of the class in pre-K.
Get the bad people out.
Yes, we sure do. Civics is called social studies in element. Civics, geography, and all of that is social studies, but definitely we're looking at the content in our virtual academy. Yes. And I'm definitely going to make sure we talk about and we include that. I think, we're getting excited about it. We're on the phones a lot about it. I think you may like what we propose. We hope to be able to do something with that.
Well, I think people need to know their rights, what our Constitution says.
Absolutely.
Our Bill of Rights, and people should not allowed to vote. I'm sorry. This whole voter suppression thing and everything else makes me absolutely ill. So, and it's so blatant now, there's no covering it. So
that is blatant.
Teach people what they are entitled for as
American
citizens.
As Americans, everyone, yes.
Exactly.
And they do a lot of activities around the voting season in the classrooms around voting. You know that. And when they connect it to geography and social studies. Yes, you're right.
Thank you. Sorry, I get on my platform, but it just.
That's good. That's good.
Well, thank you for.
This has been good. I've enjoyed this. Thank you. I like doing things on Saturday like this. We feel more relaxed and more time. You're not rushed.
Yeah,
you don't have a latte they brought to you. See, that's a problem.
Right. Yeah, and there's no box of donuts in the middle of the table. So
right. Soon.
Yeah.
So, soon is right. Anything else? We will get together again. I sent out the date. I forget. Because of Good Friday, because of Palm Sunday and Easter, we can't get another Saturday. I think that would be attractive to everybody until the 10th. So we'll have a good bit to do on that day, and we're just going to have to reconfigure some of our schedule about some things. But we got this important piece out of the way. It sounds like everybody's way more satisfied, with this model. I know I am. So I think that's great. I think families will be too. So, all right.
Thank you.
I think
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay.
Have a
Bye-bye.
good day,
Bye.
everybody.
Weekend.
Enjoy
Have a
the
great day.
sunshine today.
Yeah, have a
Bye-bye.
good weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Yes, enjoy your day.
Bye-bye, Dante.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. We'll see you guys. Bye bye.
Bye.